Imagine making a man think about you all day without sending him 100 messages, without chasing him down, without bending yourself into some impossible version of perfect. Just 3 simple words. That's it, 3 words that, if you use them right, can be the difference between being just another face he passes by or the woman who lingers in his mind long after you've left the room. And let's get this out of the way right now. This is not a cheap party trick. It's not a recycled rom-com line, and it's definitely not some gimmick designed to manipulate him. This is real. This is grounded in deep psychology and how attraction actually works beneath the surface. I'm talking about the level Carl Jung spent his life studying, the unconscious mind, that mysterious invisible space where our true desires live. See, most people think attraction is about logic, about ticking boxes. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's kind. Okay, I'm in. But that's not how it works. Not really. If it were that simple, dating apps would have solved love years ago. The truth, the connections that impact us the most aren't logical. They're emotional, symbolic. They live in the part of the mind you can't see, but you can feel. Jung put it perfectly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about that for a second. The moments that stay with you, when someone's smile hits you differently, when a throwaway comment sparks something deep, when a glance feels like an entire conversation, those aren't calculated. They're emotional triggers that bypass logic and hit straight to the core. They wake up in you that you didn't even know was sleeping. And here's where most women get it wrong. They try to create that feeling by working harder. More texts, more check-ins, more energy poured into being noticed. But the harder you push, the less magnetic you become. Because real attraction isn't born from effort. It's born from resonance. From that quiet, unshakable impression you leave when your words and presence slip past his conscious guard and speak directly to his unconscious mind. This is where those 3 words come in. They work because there are not just words. They are a symbol. They plant a picture in his head. They invite him into a story he can't help but imagine himself in. And once that image is there, once it's rooted in the part of his mind that stores meaning and emotion, you're no longer competing with the noise of every other conversation he's having. You've stepped into a completely different category. The woman he can't stop thinking about, even when he's not sure why. So, here's my promise to you. By the end of this, you're going to understand not just what to say, but why it works on a level that has nothing to do with scripts or tactics, and everything to do with understanding human psychology. This isn't about making him obsessed for a week and then fading out. This is about creating a connection that hooks him emotionally and lingers because it touches something symbolic inside him. It's not magic. It's not manipulation. It's how the human mind is wired. And once you understand that, you'll realize you don't need to chase. You don't need to overthink. And you definitely don't need to be perfect. You just need to know how to speak in a way his unconscious will never forget. And that starts now. Here's the truth most people never tell you. Attraction doesn't start in the checklist part of the brain. It doesn't begin with logic. It doesn't care about bullet points like nice, kind, good job, good looks. That's not what makes someone unforgettable. The connections that stay with us, that haunt us in the best way, are emotional first, rational later. And this is exactly what Carl Jung devoted his life to understanding. Jung taught that the human mind is driven as much, if not more, by symbols, archetypes, and unconscious patterns as it is by reason. We like to think we're making conscious, logical choices, but the truth is the unconscious gets there first. That's why he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In other words, until you understand what's pulling the strings beneath the surface, you'll think things just happen. You'll think you just click with someone, but that click isn't random. It's a symbolic and emotional resonance. Something in the way they speak, the way they move, or even the words they choose is speaking directly to your unconscious mind, bypassing logic entirely. And this is where most women unintentionally cut themselves off from making that kind of impact, because how do they usually start a conversation with something polite, neutral, and emotionally flat? Hey, how are you? How's your day going? Hope you're doing well. It's not wrong. It's just invisible. Those phrases don't create a spark because they don't carry emotional weight. They don't create a mental image. They don't break through the background noise of his day. And if nothing in your words stir him emotionally, there's nothing for his mind to hold on to, no anchor, no reason to replay the moment later. Think about it like this: the mind doesn't record words. It records feelings. You might not remember exactly what someone said to you 5 years ago, but you remember how they made you feel in that moment. That's emotional anchoring. And without it, every nice conversation fades into the same gray blur. Now, here's the kicker. The unconscious doesn't respond to perfect grammar, perfect logic, or perfectly safe topics. It responds to symbolism, to imagery, to implication. That's why a single line delivered with the right energy can be more memorable than 20 polite messages. Jung understood that what moves us most is often invisible to the rational mind. When you tap into that, when you choose words that carry a subtle charge, you bypass his mental filter entirely. He's no longer responding because it's polite. He's responding because something in what you said hooked into an emotional thread he didn't even know was there. So, if your goal is to make an impression that lingers, you have to stop leading with the verbal equivalent of a blank stare. The next time you talk to a man you're drawn to, ask yourself, does what I'm about to say create an image, spark curiosity, or stir emotion, or is it just filler? Because filler gets forgotten, emotion gets remembered. And the moment you understand that attraction is built in the unconscious, not in polite exchanges, you stop trying to impress with perfection and start aiming for resonance. That's when you shift from just another conversation to something he can't shake off. Let's be honest, most conversations start the exact same way. Hey, how are you? How's your day going? Hope you're doing well. It's polite, it's safe, and it's completely forgettable. Now, I'm not saying manners don't matter. They do. But when it comes to creating attraction, safety is the fastest route to invisibility. Because polite, neutral greetings don't trigger anything in the emotional part of the brain. They are placeholders. They don't create a spark, a picture, or a feeling. And if you don't give the brain something to hold on to emotionally, there's nothing to anchor the memory. Here's what most people don't realize. The mind isn't a recorder that saves every word in perfect detail. It's more like a painter. It sketches the moments that feel significant and fills in the rest with background blur. You might forget the exact sentence someone said, but you remember the laugh it gave you, the butterflies it stirred, the curiosity it sparked. That's how emotional anchoring works. When you start a conversation with, "Hey, how are you?" his brain files it in the same folder as the hundreds of other, "Hey, how are you?" he's heard that week. It doesn't stand out, so it doesn't get pulled forward later. And if you're not standing out in the first few moments, you're already playing catch-up. Think of it like scent. Ever smelled a perfume or cologne and instantly remembered a person from years ago? That's because scent is tied to emotion and memory in the brain. Words work the same way when they carry an emotional charge. They link to a feeling, and that feeling is what gets stored. So the problem isn't that you reached out, it's that you reached out in a way that didn't mean anything. It didn't hit the emotional circuitry. It didn't create an image he could see in his mind or a moment he could feel. Now, here's where it gets interesting from a psychological perspective. The brain is wired to notice novelty. Anything that breaks pattern, anything that interrupts the autopilot of daily life gets flagged as important. That's survival wiring. Back in ancient times, noticing something different could mean the difference between finding food or becoming food. Today, it means noticing something or someone that feels different from the rest. So when you open with something that makes him pause, that pulls him out of the autopilot scroll of his day, you activate that novelty trigger. And if that something also stirs curiosity or emotion, now you've got a double anchor. He's not just noticing you in the moment. His brain is filing you in the worth thinking about again category. But here's the warning. Novelty without emotion is just a quirky line. It might make him smile and then vanish from his mind. You need both, something unexpected and something that makes him feel, because emotion is the glue that makes novelty stick. That's why the difference between how are you and something charged, playful, or image-rich is massive. One slides past unnoticed, the other slips in and makes itself at home in his memory. And in attraction, the moment you occupy emotional real estate in someone's mind, you've already changed the game. Here's the trap. Most women don't even realize they're falling into. You start sounding like every other woman in his inbox. Same greetings, same safe questions, same predictable rhythm, and when you blend in, you disappear. It's not that he doesn't like you, it's that nothing about your words creates a moment worth holding on to. You become part of the background hum of his day, not the melody he keeps replaying in his head. And then, because you can feel you're not standing out, you start overcompensating. You send longer messages. You pack them with emojis. You give over-the-top compliments. You ask question after question to keep the conversation alive. But here's the hard truth. That doesn't pull him closer. It pushes him away. Why? Because the unconscious mind doesn't respond well to pressure. Attraction thrives on space, on the subtle tension between wanting to know more and not quite having all the answers yet. When you flood him with attention, you remove that tension. Instead of feeling drawn to you, he starts to feel weighed down by the interaction. What was once light and curious now feels like an obligation. Excessive effort also flips the emotional script. Instead of him wondering if he can win you over, he starts to feel like the prize has already been handed to him. And human nature is wired to value what's earned more than what's given away without effort. Psychologically, when something feels too available, our mind subconsciously assumes it's less valuable, and constant questioning, that's one of the fastest ways to drain intrigue. It turns a conversation into an interview. It's not that asking questions is bad. Questions can be magnetic when there are the right ones delivered at the right time. But when you rapid-fire them just to keep momentum, you're telling him you're more concerned about filling silence than creating connection. The truth is, attraction isn't about how much you say, it's about the quality of the moments you create. Your goal isn't to fill every gap in the conversation or to prove how interested you are. Your goal is to drop sparks, little flashes of novelty, curiosity, and emotion that stand out in the landscape of his day. Think of it like this. If every other woman is handing him a bucket of water, you want to be the one holding a match. A match changes the atmosphere instantly. A match has energy. It makes him stop, notice, and wonder what might happen next. That's the difference between being noise and being music. Carl Jung often spoke about the importance of symbols and emotional resonance. When you speak in a way that hints at possibility, that paints a small picture in his mind, you're not just making conversation, you're engaging his unconscious. That's where real attraction takes root. So instead of chasing his attention with more words, more flattery, more effort, pull back, make space. Let your presence and your choice of words do the heavy lifting. Give him moments to feel you, not just read you. Because when you stop trying to out-talk every other woman in his inbox and start focusing on creating impact, you go from being background static to being the signal he tunes into without even realizing why. Here it is, the moment we stop talking theory and start talking about the tool. 3 words, So simple you'll almost want to laugh when you hear them. But when you use them with the right energy at the right time, they can change the way a man sees you. Those words are you and me. Now, your first reaction might be, that's it. That's the big secret. But here's where most people miss the point. The power isn't in the size of the phrase, it's in what it implies. You and me doesn't just describe two people. It connects them in the listener's mind. It plants a mental image where the two of you are already linked, already in the same frame, already part of the same story. Carl Jung understood that our unconscious communicates in symbols, not bullet points. You and me is exactly that, Edita, a symbol. It bypasses logic and slips into the symbolic layer of the mind where meaning and emotion are intertwined. You're no longer just talking to him, you're talking with him in a way that makes him feel like you're already connected. Here's why that matters. Most women, when they want to suggest doing something with a man, ask for it. Do you want to go out sometime? Would you like to grab dinner? When you ask, you put the power entirely in his hands. You are waiting for approval, and whether you realize it or not, that shifts the dynamic. You've placed yourself in the position of applicant instead of co-creator. But when you say, you and me should grab dinner, you're not asking, you're declaring a shared vision. You're framing the moment as something that already exists in possibility. It's not a plea, it's an invitation with confidence baked in. Psychologically, that hits very differently. Think of the unconscious like a movie projector. Most of the time when you talk to someone, you're giving them information. They process it, maybe they remember it, maybe they don't, but when you say you and me, you're handing them a short scene to play in their head. Suddenly, they're seeing you two together laughing at a restaurant, standing side by side, sharing an experience. That mental image is the emotional hook, and here's the subtle genius of it. It's not aggressive. You're not cornering him with "we should be together on day one." You're giving him something light, playful, and easy to agree with. But that still builds an emotional bridge. You're suggesting, not demanding. That's why it creates intrigue instead of pressure. Jung would say you're speaking in the language of the unconscious, using a simple symbol to awaken subtle desire. Because desire doesn't always come from grand gestures or deep confessions. Sometimes it's sparked by a fleeting suggestion, a possibility that his mind starts exploring without you having to push it. And the best part, you and me works in endless variations. You can attach it to an activity. You and me should catch a concert to a feeling. You and me would make a dangerous team, even to an inside joke. You and me, we'd survive a zombie apocalypse. Every time you use it, you're reinforcing the image of togetherness without ever having to beg for it. That's why these three words are more than a line. They are a frame, a way to shift the dynamic from two separate people having a chat to two people sharing a possibility. And when you can plant that possibility in his unconscious, you stop being background noise. You become the scene he can't stop replaying. Here's why you and me land so hard. It quietly communicates three qualities that most men find magnetic, whether they can explain it or not. And the beauty is you're not shouting these qualities. You're showing them in a way that slips straight into his unconscious. First, confidence. When you say you and me, you're not timidly asking for permission. You're declaring, you're framing the two of you together as something natural, obvious, almost inevitable. That energy says, I know my worth, and I'm not afraid to imagine us together. Psychologically, confidence is attractive because it signals self-sufficiency. It tells his brain you're not desperate for his approval, which paradoxically makes him want to give it. Second, clarity. You and me doesn't wander around the point. It's not maybe we could hang out sometime if you're not busy. It's clear, direct. It says I know what I want and I'm comfortable putting it out there. In a world where so much communication is vague, clarity feels refreshing. It cuts through the static and tells his mind this is a person who's decisive, someone who doesn't get lost in hesitation. Third, initiative. This is the part that really shifts the dynamic. Most people, men and women, sit back and wait for the other person to make the move. By saying you and me in the right moment, you take the lead, you set the tone. And here's the twist. Taking the lead doesn't make you look pushy. It makes you look engaged. It signals that you're not passively letting life happen. You're shaping it. Now, let's get real about how you use it, because the same phrase can be magnetic or awkward depending on your timing and tone. Playful example, you're both talking about how competitive you get with board games. You laugh and say, you and me would be dangerous on the same team. It's light, it's fun, it plants the image without forcing it. Awkward example. You've just met him, and within 5 minutes you lock eyes and say in a serious tone, you and me should be together. That's not sparking curiosity. That's jumping to chapter 20 when you're still on page 1. Instead of intrigue, you get pressure. Playful example. You're swapping music recommendations and find out you both love the same band. You grin. You and me need to see them live. It's casual, but creates a shared possibility he can picture instantly. Overly intense example. You barely know his last name, but you lean in and say, you and me need to go away for a weekend together. That's not creating resonance. It's tripping his mental alarms. The difference is subtle, but huge. The right version of you and me is an open door. It invites him to imagine. The wrong version is a push. It demands he walk through before he's ready. From a Jungian perspective, what works is when the phrase operates as a symbol, something that awakens the archetype of partnership without you spelling out every detail. The unconscious loves suggestion. It doesn't need a blueprint, it just needs the seed. So when you use you and me, remember confidence, clarity, initiative. Say it in a way that feels like you're letting him in on a little secret, not handing him a written contract. That's how it goes from being just 3 words to becoming the line that echoes in his mind long after the conversation ends. If you want you and me to hit the way it's meant to, you can't just toss it out like spare change. These 3 words are a spark, and sparks only work when there's something to ignite. That's why there are rules, not rigid scripts, but principles that make the difference between lighting him up and leaving him cold. Rule 1, choose the right moment. This is non-negotiable. You and me works when there's already a flicker of connection. That doesn't mean you need fireworks, just a natural flow, a shared laugh, a mutual interest, or a moment where you both feel in sync. If you say it too soon before any rapport is built, it feels random at best and intrusive at worst. Think about it. If you've been talking about your favorite movies and discover you both love the same cult classic, that's your cue. You and me could quote that entire film. Boom, seed planted. Rule 2, tone is everything. You could say the most magnetic phrase in the world, but if your voice trembles or your energy screams, please like me, it falls flat. The tone that works is quiet certainty, not arrogance, not over-the-top enthusiasm. Calm, steady, like you're simply stating something obvious. That kind of delivery signals self-assurance, which the unconscious mind reads as high value. When your energy says, I'm good either way, but this would be fun, you remove pressure and invite curiosity. Rule 3, context matters. You and me needs to match the mood of the conversation. If he's distracted, stressed, or you're in the middle of a serious discussion, it's the wrong moment. The phrase loses its magic if it's dropped into the wrong emotional setting. The best time when the conversation has momentum, when there's laughter or a sense of play, when the vibe is warm. That way, the phrase feels like a natural extension of the moment, not a jarring detour. Keep it spontaneous, not rehearsed. This is where most people mess it up. They practice in front of a mirror and then try to wedge it in no matter what. And you can feel when someone is just waiting for their line. It kills the authenticity. The unconscious mind is highly sensitive to congruence. If your words and your energy don't match, the message doesn't land. The goal is to have you and me in your back pocket, ready to use when the moment genuinely calls for it. Think of it like jazz. It's not about memorizing the exact notes. It's about knowing the melody well enough to improvise. The best you and me moments feel like they just came to you in the conversation. That's what makes them believable, and that's what makes them stick. From a psychological standpoint, these rules matter because they keep the interaction in the sweet spot between intrigue and comfort. Too soon, too forced, too mismatched, and you tip into discomfort, which the brain is wired to avoid. But when you hit the right timing, tone, and context, you create a moment his unconscious flags as significant. Follow these rules and you and me becomes more than 3 words. It becomes an emotional hook, the kind that feels effortless in the moment, but keeps playing in his head long after you've walked away. Here's the thing, you and me is powerful, but like any powerful tool, it can blow up in your face if you don't know what you're doing. I've seen women turn it into pure gold, and I've seen women turn it into pure cringe. The difference: avoiding these 3 fatal mistakes. Mistake number 1, using it too soon. This is the fastest way to turn intrigue into awkward silence. When you drop you and me before there's even a hint of connection, it feels forced, like you're trying to skip ahead in the story without reading the first chapters. Imagine meeting a man for the first time and 5 minutes in saying, "You and me should go away for a weekend together." It's not playful, it's pressure. Psychologically, his brain interprets it as a mismatch. Your level of intimacy doesn't match the reality of the relationship yet, and that sets off alarms instead of attraction. Timing isn't just important, it's everything. Mistake number 2, overusing it. Part of the magic of you and me is that it feels spontaneous. When you use it once, maybe twice in the right moments, it's charming, it lingers, but the moment you start dropping it into every conversation, it stops feeling intentional and starts feeling like a slogan. The unconscious mind is wired to notice patterns, and if a phrase shows up too often, it loses novelty. Instead of sparking curiosity, it becomes background noise. Worse, it can signal desperation, like you're clinging to the one trick you think will keep him interested. Less is more here. Think quality, not quantity. Mistake number 3, waiting anxiously for validation. This one will kill the effect instantly. If you say "you and me" and then stare at him like you're waiting for a reaction, searching his face for approval, you've just stripped all the mystery away. Why? Because your energy shifted from confident to needy in seconds. The unconscious picks up on that then the conscious mind can explain it. Instead of planting a seed and letting it grow, you're essentially digging it up every few seconds to see if it's sprouted yet. That's not attractive. It's exhausting. The fix: drop it and move on. Say it like it's the most natural thing in the world, then change the subject, laugh about something else, or keep the conversation flowing. The mystery comes from acting as if the line wasn't a big deal to you, even if you know exactly what you're doing. From a psychological perspective, these mistakes all share the same route, breaking the emotional pacing. Attraction has a rhythm, and when you use you and me in a way that clashes with that rhythm, too soon, too often, or too anxiously, you knock the whole thing off beat. Remember, you and me isn't about pushing, it's about suggesting. It's not a demand, it's a spark. Sparks need the right moment, the right distance, and the right air to catch fire. Crowd them, force them, or smother them, and they fizzle. So avoid the rookie errors, let it breathe. Use it like a rare spice, not like salt you dump on everything. And whatever you do, don't hover over it waiting for instant results. Because the real magic of you and me isn't in the moment you say it. It's in the moments afterward when it's replaying in his head and he's not even sure why. That's when you stop being a passing thought and start being the thought he can't quite shake. Carl Jung once said, "The body expresses what the soul cannot say." And when it comes to you and me, that's exactly where the real power lies, because you can have the perfect Words delivered at the perfect moment, but if your body language tells a different story, the unconscious will believe the body over the words every single time. Here's why. We're hardwired to read non-verbal cues before we even register speech. Eye contact, posture, tone. These are the signals. Unconscious mind is scanning constantly to figure out if someone is confident, open, trustworthy, or worth remembering. When you say you and me with confident eye contact, a relaxed posture, and a calm tone, you're not just speaking. You're embodying the message. You're telling him without a single extra word, I'm comfortable with myself. I'm comfortable with you, and I mean what I'm saying. That's what makes the phrase land in his emotional memory instead of slipping past unnoticed. Now, let's talk specifics. Eye contact, not a sterone. Just hold his gaze a beat longer than normal when you say it. That extra moment creates a subtle charge. It tells him you're not afraid to be seen. In Jung terms, it's a symbolic act of presence. You're fully there in the moment, and that presence is magnetic. Posture, keep it open and relaxed. Shoulders back, chin level. No defensive crossing of arms or clutching your phone like a shield. When you shrink your body, you shrink your impact. The unconscious reads closed-off posture as uncertainty or discomfort, which undercuts the confidence you want you and me to carry. Tone, slow it down. A calm, steady delivery is infinitely more powerful than rushing the words out or adding a nervous laugh at the end. Quiet certainty is more compelling than loud enthusiasm because it signals, I don't need to sell this. You'll feel it. That's the kind of tone the unconscious responds to. Now, let's look at the flip side. What kills the effect? Saying you and me while looking at the floor or over his shoulder. Instant signal that you don't believe your own words. Crossing your arms or hunching in. Your body is telling him you want to hide. Speaking in a voice that's too high. Pitched or rushed. That reads as anxiety, and anxiety kills intrigue. Think about it. If the body... The stage, you and me, is the spotlight. If the stage is shaky, the spotlight flickers. But if the stage is solid, your posture, your tone, the spotlight stays bright and the audience can't look away. From a psychological standpoint, body language works because it bypasses conscious filters. You can argue with words in your head, but the body speaks directly to the unconscious. That's why someone can say all the right things and still feel off. Their body language is out of sync with their message. So when you use you and me, make sure your body is saying the same thing your words are. Be grounded in yourself, look him in the eyes, take up your space without stiffness, let your voice carry the weight of calm certainty, because when your words and your body are aligned, you and me stops being just a phrase. It becomes a moment, one that doesn't just reach his ears, but settles deep in his mind where the real attraction lives. Here's the part most people miss. You and me isn't just for romance. Sure, it can spark attraction, but its real power is in connection. And connection is the currency of every relationship, friendships, family, work. When you learn to use it outside of dating, you realize you're holding a universal tool for building trust, partnership, and inclusion. Think about your friendships. You run into an old friend you haven't seen in ages. Most people would say we should catch up sometime. Nice thought, but vague. No urgency, no picture. In the mind, now switch it to the you and me need to catch you this week. Suddenly it's specific. It feels intentional. It tells them you're not just being polite. You mean it. That shift changes whether they walk away smiling or actually pulling out their phone to make it happen. Or take it into work. You're in a meeting, a tough problem lands on the table, and instead of saying, we should figure this out, you look at a colleague and say, you and me can solve this fast. You've just done 3 things in one sentence. You showed confidence, you built instant partnership, and you made the other person feel trusted. That's a connection move, not just a communication move. Family, same thing. Imagine your teenage son is going through a rough week. Instead of the generic, let me know if you need anything, you say, you and me are taking a drive later. It's subtle, but the emotional impact is different. It's an invitation that's already halfway accepted because it frames the moment as shared, not optional. Here's why it works everywhere. You and me is a linguistic equivalent of pulling someone into your circle. It collapses the distance between you. Psychologically, it signals inclusion. You're not just out there, you're in here with me. And when people feel included, they open up, they listen differently, they show up differently. But here's the thing, you can't fake it. The unconscious is too good at spotting incongruence. If you say you and me without truly wanting that connection, it'll land hollow. This phrase works because it's both symbolic and emotional. Jung would say it awakens the archetype of partnership, a deep human drive to belong to something shared. But for it to activate that, the intent has to be genuine, and that's the heart of it. Real connection isn't about pushing, it's about inviting. When you push, you trigger resistance. When you invite, you spark curiosity. And you and me said with presence and sincerity is one of the simplest invitations you can give. So here's your challenge. Start using it intentionally, not as a gimmick, but as a habit. Try it once with a friend, once with a colleague, once with someone you love. Pay attention to how their body shifts, how their tone changes, how the energy in the conversation softens or sharpens in the best way. Because when you use these 3 words with presence, you're not just communicating, you're shaping the relationship in real time. You're saying without needing to explain it, I see you, I include you. We're in this together. Use it with intention. Watch how the atmosphere changes and tell me, has someone ever made you feel unforgettable just with their words?